Thank you, and welcome everybody. Thank you for gathering here tonight for an incredibly special event. So we will actually start with our official welcome to country, and we have Auntie Kerry here to start us off. So I hand it over to Auntie Kerry.
Thank you. Yama Warami, Warami Minga, Warami Nura, Bayala Nura Durakura, Warami Tungagal Nura, Bangili Nura, Namagu of Darabari, Gayaba, Gayadari, Yagara Wadiwan, Muriki Kaka, Kiribiti Wiri Gabarong, Gamong Bando Welawe Benalong, Padagarang, Garang Garang, Biami Kawang Jirabiti, Bangili Alawagumada, Yuguna Paribugu Barong, Biami Nura, Nagami Nura, Nuingu Yumi Yumi, Alawa Budbud, Nijanana, Baramal, Wunu, Bangili Alawagumada, Yamayana, Yanura, Wanili, Yamayana. Hello and welcome. Welcome friends, it's good to see all of you. Welcome to Durra country and welcome to the land of the Tungagal people. These are the Stone Axe people of the forest. This is also the land of the platypus dreaming. This is my father's country. It's his dreaming country, and I welcome you on behalf of my ancestors, Benalong, Padagarang, Garang Garang. I acknowledge all of my ancestors, elders, past and present. I acknowledge all Aboriginal nations of Australia and all of those that have walked before us, and I acknowledge and welcome Uncle. I acknowledge each and every one of you. Tonight, we acknowledge the land that we're on, the history today's, tomorrow's and togethers. We share, we stand here together today on this sacred ground. This land has held so many gatherings since the dawn of time, for centuries, since our very first sunrise. It holds our memories, our songlines. It connects us with country and ancestors. Our spirituality and identity is connected to the land and this relationship. We belong to this land, but the land doesn't belong to us because we borrow this land from our children. The land is our mother and it is sacred. We have but just one earth, and we must respect her and each other as we live in harmony together. My grandmother always said to us that we were 7 brothers and 7 sisters from 7 lands. We were connected by blood and by song. So with my mother's arms, I welcome you. Warami Duruga by Eleanor Dura, Tungago, Didrigo Yanu. Thank you.
So welcome Shiriam, Uncle Graham Mooney, honoured panellists and guests. Thank you for coming out tonight to our Interfaith Dialogue and Table Talk event. We will collectively be discussing the issues of climate change, connecting our faith values with the importance of caring for our planet, and you will all have an opportunity to share your stories, your vision, and develop relationships with like-minded people from diverse communities. My name is Suki. I'm a community organiser working with the South Asian communities for the Voices for Power project with the Sydney Alliance, a coalition of faith, community groups, unions and schools working together for the common good of the citizens of Sydney.
Hey folks, my name is Tim. I'm a campaigner with Democracy in Colour, which is Australia's first national racial justice campaigning organisation led by people of colour. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting, and I'd like to pay my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are here with us today. Sovereignty was never ceded and we are on stolen land. I think when we're coming to an event where we're looking at how do different faiths talk about the climate, how do different faiths think about the protection of the planet, there's so much we can learn from this country's First Nations people who have cared for this land and been stewards of this land for 60,000 plus years. We've got some really incredible people speaking tonight from diverse faith communities. We'll introduce them later on. We'll be listening to their stories and their wisdom, and we'll also have an opportunity to ask some questions and share our own stories through some table talk discussions later on. You'll find a lot of space in this agenda for you to share your ideas and vision around the issue of climate change and everything that comes with it, things like the rising cost of power. We encourage everyone to be really open to building new relationships and listening to what we've all got to hear and say, because that's how we'll get the most out of an event like this. This event was organised by the Sydney Community Forum in partnership with the Sydney Alliance's Voices for Power project and by the Manav Ekta mission. We'd also like to acknowledge and express our gratitude to Future Super for sponsoring the event. Future Super is Australia's first ethical and fossil-free super fund. For those who have not heard of any of those organisations that I've just talked about, please feel either free to talk to Suki from the Sydney Alliance, Asha Ramazan from the Sydney Community Forum, or Deepa from Manav Ekta Mission down the back. And you'll also find more information in your handy booklets on your desks.
Thanks, Tim. So let's get started. Firstly, we would like to introduce our honoured panellists who have graced us with their presence tonight. Panellists, I would like for you to raise your hand as I introduce each of you. We will begin with our respected Indigenous elder, Uncle Graham Mooney. Uncle Mooney has a high-level profile spanning 49 years in Aboriginal politics and was called out of retirement because he specialised in Aboriginal cultural protocols and international race relations. He was appointed by the Honourable Peter Collins MP Minister for New South Wales and was inducted in high security and given professional mentors how to represent the Minister as his cultural rapporteur for 4 years of the Cultural Olympiad. Uncle Mooney is involved with an incredibly diverse range of organisations and projects including Yarn Australia, Australian South Sea Islander Port Jackson, Black Men's Advocacy and Advice Service, as well as the Yuwibara Aboriginal Corporation for native title in the Whitsunday region of the Great Barrier Reef. Thank you and welcome, Uncle Mooney.
Next we have Mr. Karandeep Singh Chadha, representing the Sikh faith and the Sydney Coordinator of United Sikhs. Thank you and welcome, Mr. Singh.
We also have Reverend Alamoni, representing the Uniting Church. Reverend Moni is the Minister for the Uniting Church at Strathfield and Homebush. Thank you and welcome, Reverend Moni.
Next we have Rabbi Rafi Kaisenbluth, who's representing the Jewish faith. Rabbi Kaisenbluth is a clergy from the Emmanuel Synagogue. Thank you and welcome, Rabbi.
And we have with us Imam Hassan, representing the Islamic faith. Imam Hassan is also the Chief Executive Officer of Muslim Aid Australia. Thank you and welcome, Imam Hassan.
And second last, we've got Swami Srikarananda Ji, representing the Hindu faith. Swami Ji is the Acharya of the Chinmaya mission. Thank you and welcome, Swami Ji.
And finally, we have Shiriem, our interfaith leader who has come all the way from India. Shiriem is the spiritual leader of the Satsang Foundation, and he also coordinates activities that promote harmony between different faiths and communities through the Manav Ekta mission. Thank you and welcome, Shiriem. You can find more details on each of our panellists on the booklet on your tables, where you can read their bios, as well as some English translations of their blessings. So now we would like to make a request from each of our panellists to give their blessings for the earth. And we would actually like to start with Uncle Graham Mooney, followed by Shiriem, and then moved on to Karandeep Singh. Thank you, Uncle.
I'm Nanajuri Nalanga, and that's a word in our language for it's a greeting to greet everybody in the country. But when we greet people in the country, we greet the ancestral spirit. I'm from, my life is quite a turmoil. How I started, I suppose, in life. I started as a Christian, and I end up at the end of my life as a Brahma Kumari, and I'd studied Indian philosophy now, spiritual philosophy, it's my 34th year, and those sort of things. So I tried to combine it, and I found the teaching, quite spiritual teaching, quite amazing, and it complements my Aboriginal spirituality and those sort of things. We have a word in, a Quranic word in Australian spirituality for Aboriginal people called the dreaming. The dreaming in the Mungo woman that was discovered in Mungo Lakes. She was 65,000 years old, and they just discovered her a male companion. He's 62,000 years old. And because we're the last part of the continent of the world to be founded with the oldest continuous indigenous culture in the world in the 21st century. So even today, while we stand in our Western dress, and you heard Sister when she welcomed us to the country, we had 360 nations here on country, and in the federal native title, all of those clans and nations are coming together in the 21st century through the process of native title and those sort of things. So our children are beginning to connect back into country, because the country to us is quite spiritual. Namatjura is a famous painter from Alice Springs, and in the connoisseur of art world of Australia, the English couldn't understand why his painting of the countryside was very different to Western ways, but Namatjura saw the land as spiritual. He didn't see it as Western knowledge as a painter. And so the connoisseurs of art in Australia, when you look at Namatjura, the light in it and all that, and so that nothing on the earth in Australia, it's all spiritual, even the stones. The leaves represent our ancestors of the trees, so that we believe in incarnation, that when we die, our spirit comes back to the land. And so when we see leaves in the trees, that's the spiritual world of our ancestors that watch us as we go under the trees, and all of you in Australia Day represents that. So that it's there for shade, it's there for fruit, it's life-giving, the tree. So then all over the land we have, in customary law, sacred trees. So at the end, when the disturbance of 26th of January happened in the spiritual connotation of Aboriginal world, that was the beginning of, we believe it's become around the precipice of some huge disaster that will happen one day on this country. And those sorts, of course, the whole land, as I heard brother, is sorry business today. So what I just want to tell you, the earth, our mother, we call it spiritual, but when I work with young children, I ask them to look at their backgrounds, and if they walk back into the universe and sat and look down, they can also see that the earth is our mother, all of them. And so like a mother, it nurtures us and those sort of things.
Yeah. So first of all, welcome. Welcome is not part of the blessing. Welcome to everybody here. Thank you for inviting me here, not included in the time. Oh. Now, the blessing. I come from India, and they call me Shri M, so let me introduce myself. M in India stands for human being, Manusha. So I consider myself a human being. So Shri M simply means, respect, out of respect. Somebody, instead of Mr., they say Shri, so that's it. Okay, I'm going to chant something from our Indian, ancient Indian teachings, which is the blessings, which is Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha. I'll translate. Sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkapad bhavit. It's in Sanskrit, means May all be happy in this world. Sarve bhavantu sukhina. Sarve santu niramaya. May people have no diseases. Be free of diseases. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. May they see auspicious things around, everywhere, as they open their eyes. Ma kaschit dukkavad bhavet. Let no one have suffering and pain. This is the ancient 2,000-year-old prayer. So I think we should start this with this prayer, which is so linked to the environment. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I just wanted to start off with the Sikh greeting. Sat Sri Akal. Can everyone repeat that? Sat Sri Akal. There's also another greeting, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. If everyone could repeat that as well. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Sikhi is a very universal concept. Our religion is really very open and inviting. It's all about humanitarianism, purity, and respect and worship of God. The Sikh scripture, Guru Granth Sahib, declares that the purpose of human beings is to achieve a blissful state and to be in harmony with the earth and all of God's creation. It seems, however, that humans have drifted away from that ideal, for the earth today is saturated with problems. It is agonizing over the fate of its inhabitants and their future. It is in peril and never before. Its lakes and rivers are being choked, killing its marine life. Its forests are being denuded. A smoke haze envelops the cities of the world. Human beings are exploiting other human beings. So at this time, our religion says that the purpose of life is to achieve salvation with God, to connect with the pure, and to have victory in life. One of the things that we always pray for is, Sarpat Tapala, which means the benefit and working as a whole of humanity. We're, as I said, a very open and inclusive faith. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Good afternoon or good evening. I suppose my traditional greeting would be simply Shalom, which has many, many different meanings. Hello, goodbye, but also peace. And the concept that it speaks about peace is not simply peace, absence of conflict. Peace comes from, the Shalom word comes from Shalem, which means completeness. And so when you speak about peace, you're looking at a complete relationship. One of our philosophers stated that peace means not the absence of conflict, but the establishment of justice. And when we look at that towards the world around us, we are, if you look in our scriptures in the book of Genesis, the Bereshit, as humankind is created, it is told that we should be fruitful and multiply and then have dominion over the world and the fish and the animals. Now, many of us misinterpret that to mean that we should subdue them and do with them as we wish. But that is absolutely not the case, because those who do that, we begin to see the consequences of the world around us when we fall out of balance, out of completeness. And the idea there is simply not to subdue physically, but intellectually. With our intellect, to see how we can live in balance with those around us. The world, the natural world, and there's a blessing that we say when you come upon something wondrous. And it's a very simple blessing. It's simply Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Ma'aseh Bereshit. Praise are you, Lord of the God, creator of the one who created creation. And it's a very simple blessing, but it also encourages you to think very deeply about the world around you and to try and not necessarily return it to that natural state, but to live in harmony with that natural state. And too often we forget, and too often we misunderstand that just because we have the potential to subdue something physically, we should be remembering to use our intellect to subdue and not destroy, but to create that completeness, that sense of shalom.
Assalamu alaikum. Doesn't sound very familiar to shalom. Salam, just the ish becomes is and then ramza. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة ويقول جل وعلا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا عرضنا الأمانة على السماوات والأرض والجبال فأبين أن يحملنها وأشفقن منها وحملها الإنسان إنه كان ظلوما جهولا. I just quoted two verses from the Quran, the first one in chapter 2, verse number 32, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am going to create a vice regent for me. This is the creator of the universe. Allah says, I'm going to create a vice regent for me, which is us humans, on earth. And in the second verse, I quoted that Allah says, I have offered this trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, and they refuse to carry this trust, but the humans have carried this trust. So just make dua and supplicate to Allah that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to fulfill our trust toward this earth, as it will come in my talk, how the earth is a trust on us and how we, all of us, get together to fulfill our trust and to look after this planet. Thank you very much. I'll give you back 30 seconds to Rajendra.
Hello everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you all. I will explain the verse which I'm going to be chanting today, which is from the Hindu scriptures, and I think many of you who are Hindus would know this. The 3 Oms we will chant explains to us that the infinite Lord, the infinite presence, is that which is present everywhere as everything. And our journey is to find from our limitation to lift ourselves to finding that infinite. So the line goes, Asatoma Sadgamaya. From the unreal, the limited, lift yourself to the limited. Tamosoma Jyotirgamaya. Many of us are ignorant of what we need to do in this life, how to live in this world itself, how to live harmoniously with this world, and also to reach the infinite presence, the infinite Lord. So therefore, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Lift me from ignorance to that understanding, that knowledge. Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. From mortality, lift me to immortality. Given that we're limited, we're trying to take what we can from the world, but when we realize that we are the infinite, we are unlimited, we will stop raping the world, but yet we will give back to the world. And we finish up with 3 Shantis. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May there be peace in nature. The totality has given me so much. May there be peace. May there be peace among all of us. And may there be peace in my own heart. If I want to change the world, my Guru Swami Chinmayananda says, inner transformation is world transformation. So harmony should start from one's own self. So with that, let me do the prayer for you. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari.
Good evening. At the end of my blessing, I'll be saying, the peace of the Lord be with you, and your response, and also with you. The blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turns his face towards you and give you peace. The peace of the Lord be with you. Thank you.
All
Alrighty, I don't know about you, but after all those blessings, I feel very welcome and very blessed. Each one of our panelists in their own rights is a really respected religious and community leader, and it's a great privilege to have all of them here with us tonight. So let's put our hands together again for all of our panelists. And thank you for welcoming us to this space. I'd now like to request that our interfaith leader from India, Sri M, to formally commence the panel discussion and share his experience and story on how faith communities in India have come together for a common cause. So thank you, Sri M.
Hello. Namaskar. Shashikal. Vanakkam. And good morning. Good evening. So, I have been working on bringing people together to improve first the relationship between different religions in India, which sometimes is good and sometimes is not. I think I have some kind of background to do this because I was myself born in a Muslim family in Japan. I studied the scriptures. I also went off to the Himalayas when I was young and, kind of studied Vedanta under a teacher, a yogi and so on. I went to a Christian college, so I did do a lot of, in fact, I was about to join the church. So, and as far as the Sikh religion is concerned, I have been in touch with, every year I go to Amritsar, to Harmandir Sahib. So, but as far as the original inhabitants of this country, I don't know much except when I met this wonderful gentleman today. I've read a little bit. Okay. So what work have we been doing? I think that's more important. As a starting point for bringing together people and making them aware of the environment, we did a walk, actual walk, from the southern end of India to the northern end of India to Kashmir from Kanyakumari, which was 7,800 kilometers. We walked. And we went to every little village, every little city, every place of worship that we could find, and we were all welcome there. And that kind of registered the idea that no matter which community, what religion, we are human beings together. And as human beings, we need to survive on this earth. And to survive on this earth, we need to do something really, really important. So we started this thing called the Manav Ekta Mission on one hand, which means bringing human beings together, irrespective of their religion and background and culture, and then something called Maitri. Now in Sanskrit, the word, or in Hindi, Maitri means friendship. But in English, it means Maitri, T-R-E-E, tree. So I think it's very important for us to start looking at the afforestation that's been going on for centuries. Wherever there are trees, they are cut and buildings come up. Just now I saw many skyscrapers around here. So if we continue to build and forget the builder of nature, which is the tree, then we are going to end up in great trouble. Already the climate has changed. People can say it's not changed, but it has. So if we need to live on this earth, the future generations, we need to look at not cutting down trees, planting more trees, seeing that the greenery is revived so that we don't end up finally in complete problems and destroy ourselves. So this is the kind of work we're doing. I can proudly say that Deepa is also connected with that work in India, and we have planted trees wherever possible with the government cooperation or without the government's cooperation. And I think this should start in all parts of the world, that we start with planting trees and planting seeds of communal harmony, both. If both of these grow parallelly, I think we'll have wonderful shade to rest when we are tired. Otherwise, we are heading into real disaster. So this is the work we are trying to do. I know that many of you are involved in environmental concerns. So I think to be concerned with environment is an important part of even religion. Religion means not only to look after yourself, but also to look after your neighbor. And if you need to look after the world, you need to start with first making sure that we don't destroy ourselves through cutting down trees, by pollution, and so many other factors. In India, where I come from, all the academies of learning were in the forests. We call forest academies. Why? Because they were there to breathe. And the environment is wonderful. And trees are something that really balance the environment. So my appeal to all of you is, while you go about all the work that you do, please don't forget my tree. Adopt a tree. Make it your tree and let it grow. Aushadhanani, that aushadha, or the trees or the plants from which medicines come, are so important to us. So thank you very much. I think 30 seconds more, I have 10 seconds more. Thank you very much. Like Swamiji chanted, I also would like to say, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May there be peace. May there be peace. May there be peace. Salam. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiriyam. It was really amazing listening to your story and the work you do, especially in India. I'm also originally from India, from a Sikh family. And you think of India, you think it's just one country, but it is an incredibly diverse country, diverse faiths and cultures and languages and traditions. It's an amazing place, and for Shiriyam to be carrying out such important work across such a diverse nation, it's really amazing and inspiring. So thank you. So what we'll do now is we will request each of our panellists to also share their stories, connecting their faith values with caring for our planet, as well as any work they've carried out or been a part of which brings diverse communities together.
God, after the last thing, the greetings, I was a bit off track. But I want to encompass this reading that I'm going to give to you about what I said before about Aboriginal spirituality in the earth. And it's a book I've studied and I wrote on. It's called Spiritual Causes of Environmental Crisis. Environmental crisis is no longer imminent. It has already occurred. This has sort of come from Aboriginal philosophy. Little effort needs to be spent in convincing prospective persons of the fact. We have polluted our lakes and rivers to the point of suffocation and poisoning our water supplies. We have destroyed our wetland habitats, denuded our forests, and despoiled our fertile soils, adulterating our sources of food. We have toxified the atmosphere of automobile exhaust and industrial pollutants, blackening our lungs and clouding our brains with noxious fumes. We have robbed ourselves of the beauty of the world. Why? With all our technological sophistication, have we been unable to create even a minimally healthy, peaceful world? Why has happiness and prosperity eluded us? Why has our garden world become a jungle of thorns, squeezing the joy of existence at every moment when we should be able to rejoice? We have understood the eternal relationship which we have to nature and to God. In our pride of the scientific achievement, we have forgotten there are laws upon which the universe is run, laws which we transgress only in our peril. We have broken those laws, and now the peril has arrived. One of the primary laws of cosmic change may be stated thus: The outward condition of the world reflects the inward condition of the souls who reside therein. In other words, as long as souls remain pure and unpolluted, free of any negativity, so long as nature remains unpolluted, as long as we are benign, nature's benign. So long as we are the masters of souls, we are the masters of the worlds we live in. In the effort to explore and exploit our physical surroundings, however, we have lost the knowledge of who and what we are. Thus, in the headline push for material gain, self-mastery has utterly lost, and our problems have slowly mounted until now they nearly crush us. Yes, if we examine any of our social or environment problems, there's not a single one which we could not solve if we so desired. The significance of this observation is deep and requires thorough understanding. For example, if the heads of our major industries installed appropriate safeguards and redesigned their factories, there would be an enormous drop in the levels of pollution. But they are obsessed with taking short-term profits, even at the expense of long-term survival. Automakers should choose to design cars which are safe as well as economical, but blinded by greed and the arrogance of monopolistic control, they chose ourselves, failing to see that there's action led to a dead end in which they cannot turn around. These examples could of course be multiplied, but underlying question would be then buried under the mass of data. Inquiry must be directed to the root cause. Why is man greedy? Why do human beings behave against our own best interests? And even more crucial, as greed is an inherited quality in the human soul. The last and most important, because if our conceptual framework does not allow for the possibility of overcoming greed once and for all, then the human situation is truly hopeless. Many do in fact maintain that this negative trait is an incredible lack of human psyche. And the casual look at history would even seem to confirm their pessimistic outviews. Deeper study, however, will reveal otherwise, uncovering the true nature of the self and simply presenting us with the key to regaining our own lost paradise. 100 years ago, Henry David Thoreau noted the link between the mental environment and the physical environment. He escaped pollution of both in his retreat. He noted then what is more drastically true today. The mass of men's lives of what is more drastically true today, the mass of men's lives of quiet desperation. Man's desperation arises from what is perceived as a human situation. We are mortal, it is thought, we shall die. We live in an uncaring universe of chance. With such a worldview, it's little wonder that human beings have opted to get most of their life through material acquisition and sensual pleasure. The fear of death is fertile soil in which the poison plant of greed may thrive. And when greed is not satisfied, anger rises. The ultimate thing we hunger for is love, and surely we have taken ourselves from material beings who have mistaken sex, lust for love, thus exploiting each other and devaluing ourselves further. In this desperate condition, we have despoiled our home, the earth. I'll leave it there. And that's sort of summarised in Aboriginal spirituality from the time of 26th of January to where we are, that we're at a precipice, and I know that the earth I live in, Australia, is poisoned because of a whole lot of things that I do in the Great Barrier Reef, and I see it there from fertiles and fishes and all those sort of things. So that's, I just want to share that with you. Thank you very much.
Hi Hi everyone. I just wanted to take a minute or two just to share my story. I came to Australia when I was very young with my family, 5-year-old. We went to Melbourne, then we came to Sydney. Been back to India, where my ancestors were from. Actually, my ancestors were from modern-day Pakistan. There was a mass migration that happened in 1947 between Pakistan and India. In terms of this topic itself about environment and ecological and preservation of the environment, like as a person that grew up in Australia, it always deeply shocks me to go back to India. I know you mentioned about Australian pollution and barrier reef, but if anyone ever has gone to India, like Delhi or Punjab, I think you're going to go to another new level of pollution. Not that I'm trying to demean anyone or demean any governments, but there's a huge number of problems in India. As soon as you land, there's dirt on the road, there's diesel fuel, there's a lack of trees, pollution, there's drug and alcohol problems. The state that Sikhs come from is in Punjab. There's a lot of greenery that's been demolished. There's also a lot of problems in society. Greedy governments also trying to exploit people. So to me, actually, Australia feels like heaven, believe it or not, which is probably contrary to your opinion. But yeah, in terms of the role that I've played, I work for United Sikhs, which is an organization that looks for Sikh rights, and they've fought many cases. For example, Sikhs, children weren't allowed to go to Christian and Catholic schools in Melbourne. They recently fought for that case and allowing the Sikh turban or the star to be worn inside schools. There's been cases about Sikh artifacts and religious items such as kirpan and various other items. We tend to work very closely with multiple organizations across the board. But yeah, at the end of the day, we are trying to build better networks with other communities. In terms of going back to the topic itself about environment, the Sikh gurus were very strong environmentalists. So it does deeply shock me going back, because there's theory and then there's practice, and the practice is way beyond the theory. They created many cities like Kartarpur Sahib, and they planted many trees. They were all about Kar Seva, which means selfless service, giving to humanity. If you go to any Sikh Gurdwara, you will see there's a langar, which is all about giving to other human beings, people that are in need, people that are in homeless situations. There's also a whole raft of things that they did. For example, Guru Har Krishan Sahib Ji, he did a lot of herbal medicines, and people that were in need would come to him. We've always been a very open, tolerant, accepting, and helping faith. We've always helped other communities as well. But yeah, like I said, theory and practice always shocks me. Right now in Punjab, water is actually running out. I was reading and watching a movie that a lot of the water is going to other states, and it's going to probably become a desert in 50 years, Punjab, which is actually the breadbasket of India in terms of giving wheat, in terms of giving all the different fruits and vegetables. So it's kind of very deeply shocking to me. In terms of the Australian context, I think I completely agree that with more and more political agendas and parties trying to increase the sort of migrations to big cities, we do have to make sure that the cities' environments are preserved. We don't just want to build railroads and more and more highways and traffic jams. We also want to make sure that there are enough trees, there are enough environmental friendly things as well. which I think government tends to try and do, but I think as citizens we have a much more bigger role to play in actually presenting that to government. The other thing I wanted to also say is that it's everyone's right as a citizen and everyone's responsibility as a citizen as well. It's all good and well to say that organization is doing one thing, that organization is doing something, but it's about what you're doing as well as an individual and as a person. Are you going to your park? Are you planting trees? Are you writing to your council? Are you taking steps in your own hand? Like I said, there's theory and then there's practice. So we have to make sure we're practical as well. That's all.
I'll start also a little bit with my story. Obviously, from my voice, I am not, as we say, from around these parts. I come from the Western Hemisphere. I feel not very many people here come from that area. My parents from South America and my grandparents from Europe. The first one in my family born in the United States. I left there a while ago, and I suppose living in the UK before that, but living in New York during university, I felt for the first time completely and totally separated from nature. They call it the concrete jungle, that you can spend days at a time and never see a tree. But yet, in the midst of that, there is this oasis, Central Park. And many days you just go and wander, and you can sort of forget that you're in the middle of a massive city of however many people live there. I moved to London, or just outside of London, in 2010, and very quickly began to build relationships with the religions around in our town. Reverend Tony Hurl and the president of the mosque nearby, Akhtar Zamin, still very close friends of mine to this day, even though I've only been here in Australia for a year and a half. And part of that comes from a story, and I'm really not sure which tradition it comes from, but it's a story of two guys, they buy a boat together and they take it out into the water, and all of a sudden in the middle of the lake, one starts drilling a hole in the boat. And the other guy says, "What are you doing?" He says, "What do you care? This is my side of the boat. I can do what I want." I'd like to take credit for that from the Jewish scriptures. I'm really not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head where it comes from. But the idea is we realized very quickly we were all in this together. And we decided that it wasn't enough simply to tolerate one another. It's a word that I really have learned to despise. It connotes for me this concept of, I'll tolerate you from a distance, but I don't really want to be in relationship with you. And we decided to do more than that. We decided that we were going to get to know one another, to learn about one another, to be in relationship with one another. And it comes from a few different concepts. Most importantly, it comes from this idea that we have in our Jewish script, in our Jewish understanding, is the term tikkun olam, which means to fix or heal the world. And it doesn't only necessarily mean from an environmental perspective, but it also means from a social perspective. And it's a kind of a catch-all term that means and encompasses giving of charity, raising up others, but also understanding that I'm in the boat with you. And I can't simply make a hole in my side because it affects you as well. And we began to do projects together. We began to work together from simple things such as visiting one another in our places of worship, bringing the children to learn about one another, but also on our days we have in our Jewish faith this holiday called Tu B'Shvat, which is really just the Hebrew word for 16, Tu, and B'Shvat, the 9th of Shvat. It's not very creatively named, but it is one of our 4 New Years that we have. We like to celebrate a lot. This one is the New Year for the trees. And it is a very, very minor holiday, but has become this central focus and rallying cry for environmentalism in Jewish faith. And we began to team up with the Muslim community and the Christian community, and we would do things such as planting hedges together. We would do things such as going to the Christian cemetery and cleaning out the brambles. Anybody not know what a bramble is? It's a horrible bush with thorns, and it's just not fun. But The idea is, in working together to heal the world from a physical sense, we were also working together to heal the world amongst ourselves. And much more than simply tolerating one another, we began to actually get to know one another and learn about one another and respect one another. And once we were able to do that, we really began to heal the world physically around ourselves as well. And in projects that began to transcend the physical world, but also then caring for those in need in our community. And doing this in a way that respected and understood that we actually had many of the same values and many of the same ideas about what the world around us should look like. So it was a beautiful way to live the values of the Christian, the Muslim, and the Jewish faith. This idea of healing the world. And so doing that, planting trees, spending time with one another, learning from one another, was really a highlight of not just once a year, but a continual idea that we learned not just to study, but, as my friend here says, putting theory into practice.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm going to talk about the relationship between earth and environment and climate change and the faith, the Islamic faith. I will also talk about the position, the Islamic position towards this gathering and why we are here today. And then I will close with one comment. So first point, the relationship between the Islamic faith and climate change and the earth. See, the word earth or nature came in the Quran in approximately 750 verses. The whole Quran is just over 6,600 verses, 6,636 verses, 750 of which is over 10%, talks about nature. About every aspect of nature as well, like trees, water. Like for example, God says in the Quran that we have created وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ, means we have created from water every living thing. So this is the importance of water. And Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as well says, preserve water and conserve water even if you are on a running river. Even if you have a running river, yet be careful of water. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says about earth that مِنْهَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى, meaning that we have created you from the soil, from earth, and into the earth we shall return you, and from that we will resurrect you again. So this is also from the soil. And many verses, other verses about the nature of Quran, as my friend Rabbi Rafi mentioned, that yes, Allah says, وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مِنْهُ, means that we have made all this creation on earth that is subservient to you, but look after it. But it is a trust, not that we abuse it, but as a trust, and fulfill your trust. So this is in general the 750 verses, as I said, the position of the Quran, and there are many other verses, of course, and I have here a book, if anyone is interested. I wrote this book about Islam and nature, so feel free after this panel, you can have a look at it. Now the position of the Islamic position towards such a gathering, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in chapter 49 in the last page, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. He said, O people, we have created you from a male and female, and we have made you we divided you into different nations and tribes and ethnic backgrounds. To do what? To fight? Like he said, لتعارفوا, so that you get to know each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, وَلَوْ شَاءَ لَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً واحدة, means if we knew, if you want, God says, if I wanted, I would have made everyone the same. But we have created you different so that you can exchange and learn experience and also demonstrate the capabilities and the ability of the supreme creator, the supreme engineer who created this universe. So coming together, and also chapter 5, verse number 1, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَعَوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Means cooperate with each other, all people, regardless of their faith, cooperate with each other in everything that is good, and it is a common good, and never cooperate with each other on anything that is harmful. So this is the Islamic position about such a gathering and how it is related to the faith. I will finish with this comment, which is I'm also a permaculturist. I'm a very active person in learning the science and design of permaculture, which is permanent agriculture, which basically the sustainable development science. I read in one of the articles that if all humans would disappear now, just assume all of us will disappear now, the planet is still going downhill. Khalas, it is beyond fix. The climate change, the damage that we have caused to the nature and the environment of the climate, it is beyond repair. However, now this is the good part of it. That means is we cannot afford to disappear. So like we need, but together, if we work together to fix it, it can be fixed. So if we hands off now, we don't do anything, it's still going downhill. But that's why the university needs us. It needs us to work together. That if we work together, we can reverse this damage. We can reverse this damage. And now listen to the even better part, which is the tipping point theory, where we do not need 51% of humans to work to fix and reverse that direction. All what we need is from 12 to 14%, let's say 14%. If 14% of the humans start doing the right thing, we'll reach the tipping point and we'll start reverse the direction. Only 14%. Can we get it? So I think that's why yes. I want to hear that again, please. Yes. Can we do it? That's it. And that's why I was excited and interested to come to this forum with all my friends, especially from all the different rivers or all the different faiths, to work together as community leaders. And every one of you is a community leader. I had the pleasure to meet Christy as well in the last gathering. Christy. So together we can start doing something, and hand in hand together. So can we also build bridges, not build walls between us. Thank you very much.
Hari Om, everyone. I'll start with a little story which I experienced the week I finished my training program in India. I was traveling in the bus with one of my fellow friends, and we had a Fanta bottle, I can remember, a plastic bottle. We were traveling in the bus. We both had attended the program, the training program, and he decided to continue with his family life. And we both had the Fanta bottles, and I kept mine in a plastic bag to throw away later. And he just threw it out the window. And I looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, we do this all the time." "Can't you see the dirt there?" So I looked at him and I was totally disgusted, because I came from a country which is called Australia, that's where I was brought up all my life, that we don't do such things. Few years later, there was Clean Up Australia Day. And we decided that we will clean up the street where our ashram, our monastery is, which is on Carrington Road in Castle Hill. So we thought, let's all get together, let's help with Clean Up Australia. Oh, yeah, Australia's quite clean, probably not much work. Carrington Road, where the Hills Council was, they moved down. So we started cleaning up, and I could not believe we had 30 bags of rubbish. I said, well, clean street, I thought. Left it at that. Every year we continue that. I was driving down to Liverpool. As I was driving and turning into the M5, there was a car in front of me. And he was drinking a cup of coffee. Same cup type. Who was inside? An Australian, a Western Australian, a white Australian, which I have high regard for because they seem to be clean and proper. Suddenly I see this cup coming out the window, because there was a pack of bush there. Then I said, whoa, so it's not just Indians, it's an international standard that we will throw our cups out the window. Whatever it may be, I don't know, it looked exactly like this. Then I thought, I did the calculations in my mind. 2 billion people in India, we see the dirt. 20 million people in Australia, you don't see it. But if you multiply the amount of people and put it in Australia, I'm sorry to say, we may be a dirtier place. Right? And that was the best example of Clean Up Australia. So therefore, why is it that we are not able to stay clean? Why aren't we able to fix up our environment? It's because we are very ungrateful human beings. We've been given everything, but yet we don't know how to look after it. In the Hindu scriptures, you ask, can you please share from the Hindu scriptures? My guru was asked, can you show us what your Hindu scripture is? He said, come, I will take you to my house. He took him to the monastery and showed him a whole room. I said, this is only a portion of the Hindu scriptures. So for me to share Hindu scriptures is a bit tough. But I will give you from one of the scriptures, one of the books called Srimad Bhagavatam. It says that the reason why you and I cannot live harmoniously in this world is because we are ungrateful. There are 5 things that we need to be grateful about. One is Devaran, it's called. We should be grateful to nature. We ourselves have come from 5 elements the scriptures point at. Space, air, fire, water, and earth. All of these 5 things are most important for our sustenance. Land, we destroy. We take everything from it, we don't do anything and put it back, we put rubbish inside. Water, we pollute the waterways. Air, what do we do with it? If you go to different parts of the world, now they're even selling airs in bottles. You may think it's funny, but go to eBay, you will find. You can buy Sydney air, you can buy Brisbane air, you can buy USA air. So therefore we're polluting that also. Anything that helps us sustain ourselves due to our selfishness and our ungratefulness, we pollute and we destroy. Just for our temporary gain. We don't have this long-sightedness. So therefore the first thing he says is Devaran, one must have gratitude to nature. Second is Rishirin, to the teachers and the gurus, the spiritual teachers who've given us this knowledge about our higher nature and how to deal and be with people. We have no respect for those teachers. We may listen to them, but the respect comes when we actually start living it. Our own ancestors and our own parents. We say environment. This is all part of our mind makeup. We have no respect for our own parents who have brought us up. How are we going to look after something which is inert? Right, so we need to look after our own parents. That is also environment. That's also part of the destruction that we're doing. Other beings in this universe. That worms and all that. You know, there are so many beings that help this environment. We get destroyed by building, as our Sri MG was telling, that we're building big skyscrapers. There's nothing wrong in building. But build it in such a way that you don't destroy the environment. We have to be practical in our practices. That you can't say, I'm not going to build a house. You need the house to live. But try to make it eco-friendly. Try to live with it, not live against it. Fellow beings, human beings. Are we humane to each other? We call ourselves humane beings. Human beings are humane beings. But are we humane to each other? We're ready to destroy the other person so I can lift myself and show that I'm so famous. So these 5 things is what makes us a human being and makes us divine beings. So if all of us can help and be grateful for these things that's been in our life, these 5 things, automatically everything around us gets fixed up. But as I started with the blessings at the start, it is me that has to lift. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Yad yada charati shreshtaha, tatta devetaro jana, sayat pramanam kurute, lokas tadanu vartate. One individual thinks, what can I do? It's only 1 cup that I threw out the window. But did I not see him? We are all role models for others. So our brother here said 14%. 14% starts with me. What can I do? Because obviously there are others who will watch me. As parents, your children watch you. As relatives, your relatives watch you. All it takes is for me to start the process. And if I can change myself and my attitude, because I have this gratitude, that 5 things in this universe has helped me to be who I am. We always think that I am everything. It's all about me, me, me. But I'm not self-made. If anybody ever says to me, I'm self-made, I said, you're the most stupidest person. Because the universe has made us. We are all Mr., Miss, Mrs., Miss Universe. Because the universe has worked for us. We should work for the universe. Give back to the universe. So I ask you all, we are all here as friends, brothers and sisters. Let us work together to give back what the universe has given us. And by doing so, the universe will repair itself. Swami Chinmayananda says, the Ganga is polluted, the Ganga river. But you stop polluting, Ganga will fix itself up. You stop destroying the earth will fix itself up. You stop doing your nonsense. So I leave that with you. Please take it that you've been given such a great treasure for yourself and generations to come. Let us not stop, let us work for it. Thank you. Very much.
My faith value as a Christian makes me utterly uncomfortable and hugely concerned to see the threat of climate change trailing only next to the use of weapons of mass destruction as the greatest threat to humankind, which is climate disaster created by climate warming. I have experienced the horror of the destructive effect of Category 5 cyclone Gita destroy my kingdom just about a month ago. It is climate change takes its tolls on the islands of the Pacific area, even Australia. Globally, we've just experienced the hottest 5-year period ever recorded in history, stretching from 2013 to 2017. And last month, part of Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria were hit with a severe heat wave, breaking February averages by more than 10 degrees. Hand up if you felt it. I did. The threat to our lives and livelihoods from extreme weather isn't limited to heat waves, by the way, but extends to more frequent and more severe storms and floods, more intense and out-of-season bushfire. Mind you, 90 houses was being destroyed just in the last couple of weeks in Victoria alone. And also to mention, widespread and prolonged drought will be more common in this country and in our world. More to come. All of us is and will continue to be affected by the issues of climate change. No matter where you are, in Australia or in India or in Tonga, we are going to be affected. And this may lead to other pressing issues that is upon each of our communities. And that's why I believe we're here tonight. And we must stand up and act upon them. Can I challenge you? The Tongan community in Australia, especially in Sydney, is driven far west of our city. Why? Because of unaffordable housing effects. And while they are struggling with already the highest cost of the house market ever in our country. They are further disadvantaged by the costs of power bills imposed on them by the power companies who don't care about people like you and like me, but only to make money of their own industries. These are real issues that challenges me as a Christian to the core of my faith. Therefore, action must be made for the decision by those who make decisions in our country to hear our voices and to alleviate costs that affects you and affects me and my community. I am convinced, as my brothers and sisters here tonight, with the challenge posed to us by climate change and the opportunity of transferring to affordable and renewable energy, my community and yours coming together in a collecting voices is greater than the power of any government, any business, or any institutions in this country. I believe wholeheartedly that my voice and my community's voice can make a difference. A little, but an important contribution to climate justice in this country, but also in our world. God made the world, and He saw that everything was good. Would we keep it as it is? Bless you.
So we've just heard from 7 different perspectives, 7 different faiths, 7 different people, but I think there were a couple of common threads that came out from there. There was a common challenge that was talked about, you know, a challenge of rampant extraction, rampant consumption that has seen us drive our planet to extremes, that has seen us get to the brink of a climate catastrophe that is pushing extinction levels to heights not seen in 66 million years, that is pushing and seeing our planet overshoot our biocapacity by more than 50%. So our speakers talked about a common challenge, a shared challenge, but they also talked about a shared hope that maybe it's not too late, that maybe if we work together, that if we stand hand in hand with our neighbours, that if we organise, that if we take collective action, that if we refuse to believe that the conclusion to this story is already written, that we can pick up the pen and write an ending that sees a future that we want to live in, that sees a future where our kids, you know, not just have a chance at surviving, but thriving. And so I think that's the sort of challenge and hope that was talked about tonight. So let's put our hands together again for our panellists. I'd also like to now request that our panellists join a table for our table talk session. So choose whichever table you'd like to sit at.
Now, there is a lot to reflect on after our panel discussion tonight, and we're keen to hear all of your thoughts on what you've just heard. The process of the table talk session is as follows. Take a bit of time to reflect on the question we're about to ask you, then share your story with each other. The question that we want each of you to reflect on is as follows. Have you, your family, or your community been affected by the current climate crisis? And would you like to invite your faith community to engage with you on this? So before we begin, I would like to ask small group leaders at each table to raise their hands. Thank you. So these leaders will facilitate the table talk session tonight. So we will have about 13 minutes and then we will come back together in a large group at 7:35. Thank you.
after Sri M does all of that and closes the evening, we're going to have a group photo. You can't escape one of these events without getting a group photo, so please stay here and there'll be a photographer who will direct us all and make us look beautiful. So thank you.
So I'm supposed to just wind up the meeting. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. I think the urgent needs of this conference today is for people who are living here now in Australia. I can go back and do something in India, but I am not a citizen of this country. So I think it was an urgent and important message for people who are living here, that they take things into their own hands and try to do things which can improve the future. We can't do anything about the past. We can't go back and tinker with the past, but we can certainly do something now so that the future will be assured for us. And all the discussions, we had all the wonderful panelists who were here, who I heard speak, were all, I think, pointing to this direction, that we take things into our hands and do the best that we can. I'm not qualified to give blessings, but I can only invoke the blessings of the Supreme Almighty God on all the people who are here, and I hope that with the blessings of the Supreme, all the things that we have thought about would be translated into action. Action is the word. Thought is not just enough, action is important. So thank you very much once again. I greet you and say goodbye to everybody. Thank you very much.